She was thinking that because of bunch of white nationalists, how you said, bunch of white nationalists pushed Christianity down your throat.
Christianity was in Africa before Europe.
Whoa, did you hear that? Christianity was in Africa before Europe. Yeah, like Ethiopia. Go ahead, keep going, brother.
The Ethiopian Bible is older than the King James.
And thank you. That's exactly right.
The argument that Christianity brought, that colonialism brought Christianity to Africa is completely wrong.
Why is it completely wrong?
Because Christianity was already in Africa before Europe.
Christianity was in Africa before Europe. Everybody hear that?
And one thing you need to know is that Christianity is not a European religion.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. One more time. Real loud.
Christianity is not a European religion.
Man, you're awesome. Christianity is not a white European faith religion. Keep going, brother. I like you.
Jesus wasn't white.
Jesus was not white. Keep going.
So he looks more like, the Jews. He was a Jewish man, right? So he was kind of brown. And even though, the Europeans brought European culture to Africa, for example, I'm from Nigeria, right? So the missionaries came to Nigeria and they set up schools and all that. So one thing you need to ask yourself is, why did the people there choose to accept this religion? And one of the reasons why they chose to accept this religion was that some of the values being propagated by this religion already aligned with their values. So, for example, the Igbo people we call, they had names that they would call God, right? The Yorubas, they had names that they would call God. So they had a framework for these things already, right? So the Europeans came in and they brought the Christian religion, and immediately these people accepted it. Now, the missionaries came before the colonial masters came. So it was after the missionaries came in and they set up schools and missions and all those things that, British started the colonial endeavor in Africa. So Christianity already had a strong foundation in Africa, even before the British came in with colonialism, the French came in with assimilation, and the British came in with the principle of association.
Grand Rising, everybody. Look, this young man is being completely used by this pastor to continue to push a narrative that is completely false. In the very beginning of this video, he goes ahead and states that Christianity was in Africa before it was in Europe, and later on this pastor goes ahead and pushes the narrative that Christianity came out of Africa and was not forced upon its people. The information that was presented here is almost entirely incorrect, and it is a swerve of the actual history that occurred during this time frame. To start out with what he was saying, the fact that he compared the Ethiopian Bible to the writing of the King James Bible, when we know that there were many different Christian Bibles that was written prior to the 1611 King James Bible, that you had the Tinsdale Bible, to just name one, that Christianity had already been in Europe long before the King James Bible was even written. Now, in that, he talks about how Ethiopia had Christianity. But the problem with this is that Ethiopia didn't adopt Christianity as a state religion until the 5th century BCE. And the reason why it was adopted so that there could be easier trade and policy negotiations with the Empire of Rome. Now, why did the Axiom Empire, which is now the Ethiopia, agree to this? Well, Rome in 382 had been declared a Christian empire. That means that throughout the entire Roman Empire, which was primarily in Europe and the Levant and some of North Africa, it was declared that it would be, by Pope Theodosius II, that it would be a Christian empire. That means that prior to the Axiom Empire, Ethiopia, becoming Christian, it had already adopted Christianity as its religion, as its state religion, for almost 100 years. Now, prior to that, in 325, you have the Council of Nicaea. Now, with the Council of Nicaea, Constantine requested that different bishops from all over the Roman Empire would come and settle the disagreements to which was going on in the Roman Empire in order to quell down some of the fighting. Now, there were bishops who came out of Alexandria And that could possibly, but not verifiably, have started in around 90 CE, because there is the legend of Mark going into Alexandria, Egypt, and starting the first Greek Christian church in Alexandria, Egypt. That would still put it at 90, and he did not come there prior to Vespasian conquering Judea and bringing Christianity into the Roman Empire through the works of Josephus. But we have this Council of Nicaea 325, which is still long before any missionaries had ever went into Ethiopia to bring Christianity to it. There's a story of a so-called saint missionary who went into Ethiopia and began teaching, but this was someone who came out of Egypt and was very much after it had already been in Rome prior to that. We also know that Constantine and Maxentius had Christians in his military. Prior to that, you also had Roman church fathers like Irenaeus, who wrote about Christianity, spoke about Christianity, denounced many of the different types of Christianity, like Marcionism, that was already in Rome and spreading throughout the Roman Empire, which was the thing that spurred the Council of Nicaea, as well as the Edict of Milan, to make Christianity a legal religion in the Roman Empire, prior again to this Ethiopian church ever being founded. Now, you also have to look at the time frame that Irenaeus was in and around 180 CE. That means that Christianity was already in Europe during that time frame. That even when Tacitus and Pliny the Younger, which was around 120 and a little bit earlier, around 90, was writing about Christians being in the Levant, these were Roman governors who wrote about Christians and compared them to Serapis, who was the Jesus type figure in Ethiopia. So clearly, this is a misuse of history that this young man is espousing, as well as this pastor is participating in usury of this young man to get his narrative across. Now, speaking of how Christianity came into West Africa, we do not see this happening until around the 15th century, around in the 1400s, and these things were spurred on because of Pope Alexander IV and Pope Nicholas IV and Pope Alexander VI, when both of them wrote papal bulls in around 1447, 1454, and around 1460, that you have these papal bulls that says that the Portuguese and the Spanish were authorized by the Pope to go into these West African countries, and if they found people were not Christian, to which they did, that they were under decree to force them into Christianity and force them into chattel slavery, meaning perpetual slavery until they die, that they were under the guise of God to go and do this. So therefore, Christianity was not in West Africa prior to that. Now, did Christian missionaries go into Nigeria specifically before colonization? Yes, they did. But they came and they pushed Christianity onto the leadership of the tribes within Nigeria. And if you understand how the culture was back then, if the leadership of your tribe, the leadership of your nation declared that this is our new religion, then you would have to choose that religion and follow that religion, or you would meet the end of a spear or a knife or some other torturous way of death. And then it was after that that the colonization of Nigeria occurred. So this is a continuous swerve that this pastor puts out, and I will make it my point to go and rebut majority of the things that they speak of. The only thing that was actually correct in here, in this timeline, was the fact that if this Jesus character existed, then this Jesus character would have been of a melanated color. He would have been a brown man. But this is the world we live in, and some of these people think that they have acquired knowledge, but really they are still lost in the knowledge. So remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.